Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of my MyTeam series. I am Stormlad, and if you did not catch Azerbaijan in our previous episode, please make sure to check that one out, as that was a very chaotic end and we did score our first points as Brabham. Verstappen did have a DNF, so that's big implications to his championship charge, with Charles Leclerc taking the win. So he's really trying to claw back any points, as he did lose out on quite a few points. As you can see there in the standings, there's a Red Bull 1-2 with Leclerc in third, and Red Bull are currently leading the constructors. So it's still very early days, but there is a lot to play for in this series yet to come. Heading straight into practice now. This is the final lap of our race strategy program. As you can see, it's actually taken us quite a while to get up to speed, and we don't actually get the purple result that we're after. So it's not a good sign, seeing that our race pace isn't quite there. And then moving forward now straight into our fuel saving program. We're really good at the fuel saving, but we just can't get the lap time, so we actually decide to abandon our final attempt at it and pull into the pits. So yeah, it's not looking good at the moment. We get a fuel save, we just can't meet a good race pace. But this is looking much better, as you can see here with our track acclimatization program. It looks like that we can at least get the braking zones and the racing line down packed. So in the end, Max Verstappen tops the practice session. We're last on the medium tyre, so hopefully we can find a bit more pace on a different compound of tyre, but we have seemed to have struggled in the medium tyres so far this series. And looking at a couple of upgrades here, mainly just aerodynamics to try and improve the car for future races. Obviously it's not going to make any changes to this race here in Miami, as it is a bit late, but using those development program and research points that we did acclaim during practice to try and help our development and just try and fast track it a little bit. And now this is the end of our first flying lap. 2 green sectors, as it is our first flying lap. We're currently sitting P12, as we will be the 12th person to set a lap, and we go P8. So we're behind the Alfa Romeo, but ahead of the Alpha Tauri, so not really where we want to be at the moment. We've had a cool down lap and bit of a recharge lap, and now it's the end of our next qualifying run. And we actually nearly set an identical lap time to our previous run on that first set of tyres, and now we're trying to do another lap here, back-to-back fast laps, but we run very wide at the end of the back straight, which has really compromised us now. So we've been trying to use these soft tyres for as long as we can, but it's just not working at the moment. Trying to make any gains possible. We're playing a bit of a game of chicken here, trying to find our gap here in the queue to start our next lap. And it hasn't really gone to plan, as the Alpha Tauri of Yuki Tsunoda has actually tried to overtake us going onto our next qualifying lap. So now we're actually stuck up behind him, but we've got a bit of a bigger issue here actually. As some of you may have noticed, on our MFD, I have forgotten to turn the ERS back on. So I'm currently trying to set a hot lap on the set of new soft tyres. I'm actually pretty sure of what I've done, and I haven't set the ERS to deploy. So I am really taking out a heap of life out of the tyres. So I'm just currently thinking that I've had an absolute mare of a lap, as now I'm starting to back it off and trying to get the slipstream off Sergio Perez for this lap. But I think I've backed it off a bit too much, because now I don't think I'm getting the slipstream benefits of the Red Bull. So this lap will just have to be on pure pace, with only 2 seconds left on the clock, and now fast forwarding to the end of our final attempt in qualifying 1. And it's not looking too good. We're only about a 10th up, and I really needed it to be a bit more. And so I reckon this will be the end of our qualifying run, and there it is. We've qualified last for the Miami Grand Prix. So we've definitely just got zero pace so far this weekend, so we're going to have to try and pull something out of the hat in the Grand Prix, as Charles Leclerc tops this first qualifying session ahead of the 2 Red Bulls. So both Brabham cars have been eliminated in qualifying, which isn't a great sign, so hoping we can make something work of the race.
We're here at the Miami International Autodrome, the home of the Hard Rock Stadium, a multi-purpose sports and entertainment hub which has hosted Super Bowls, Baseball World Series, numerous rock concerts, and of course, as of 2022, Formula One. Well, it's certainly not sunny here in the Sunshine State. A lap of the Miami Grand Prix features 19 corners and 3.36 miles of track around the Hard Rock Stadium. But these conditions should prove especially difficult for all of our drivers today. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Sergio Perez will lead us away from pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Norris, Gasly, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso, Bottas, Stroll, Tsunoda, Albon, Magnussen, Joe, Iwasa, Sargent, De Vries, and the Rainmaster. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. Also here, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? As ever, the threat of unreliability is never far away, and indeed, they'll be starting out of position today due to power unit component changes. It's going to be a difficult task to move forward from there.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
Alrighty, here we go. We're going to have to try and make something work here. So it's a wet race to start with, and as you can see, it will get dry later onto the race. So I'm just going to select the default strategy here, and I don't think I've actually done any driving in the wet yet, so I don't know how much fuel this car's going to be burning in the wet. So I've just left the fuel as is, because I don't know if the game's going to either overfill us or if it's going to be just right. So I'm just going to leave the fuel. I may say that I'm 1.5 laps up on fuel, but really I'm not too phased about that. The main goal is to try and get these temperature tyres in a good temperature window, as I do struggle on really all of the Formula 1 games to try and get the intermediates into a decent tyre window. So as we check a weather report now, as you can see, that it's actually going to be a lot sooner onto the dries. So hopefully we're not going to be on these inters for too long of the race, and we can get straight onto the dries and maybe try and create a strategy plan to try and jump a heap of cars during the pit stop phase. So as we line it up into a grid box, we're going to be a bit far back than we like, 0.3 of a meter, as we now go to the lights, and we're going to need something special here, and it is 5 lights and we're off. And as you can see, it's actually a pretty good start. Logan Sargent's a little bit slow and he goes a little bit defensive, so we're going to have to go to the inside line, and everyone checks up so much more than we ever expected. So we've found quite a nice little gap on the outside actually, so we're going to jump a massive amount of cars as we're squeezed onto the curb a little bit. So that's going to really compromise our exit going into this fast flowy section before the back straight, where we can try and benefit from slipstream. But looking at the timing, it looks like Stroll is actually kind of pulling away from us a little bit, so we're going to have to look more into our mirrors to try and defend from Nick De Vries. So Nick De Vries is actually going to go around the outside of us, but we're going to give him a little bit of a squeeze going into the stadium section. And now fast forwarding later onto the lap, we're looking to try and make up as many positions as we can while the field is this close together as we go for a move on Stroll, but we've actually locked it up, and we're going to hit wheel to wheel with Nico Hulkenberg. So I wasn't trying to go for the pass on Nico, but we'll take the position since we've sent it down that deep into the corner and now onto the next lap, about to go onto the back straight. We're a little bit tentative on the throttle as we get a ton of understeer, and it's really going to ruin our exit here. So we're going to be under attack from Lance Stroll, and the curb also really unsettles the car. So we've had a bit of a tank slapper coming off the exit of the corner. So now we're going to get pretty much freight trained on this back straight. One car goes by, and I reckon Nico Hulkenberg will probably try and make this work too. So it's a 4-car battle pack nearly. And the outside line has been left open for us, so we're going to try and go around the outside of a lot of them, but we've gone in too deep, so we're going to have to rejoin here. And Nico Hulkenberg didn't leave us any space at all, so we've made a little bit more contact with the German drivers, so I'm sure he's probably going to be fuming inside of his helmet, knowing that he's made contact with us twice so far this race already. Now looking at Charles Leclerc making a move on Pierre Gasly. So if you remember in Azerbaijan, the outside line off the corner was actually the preferred line for the AI, so I would almost say that Charles Leclerc should get the better traction here, but we know the straight line speed of that Alpine is also very good. So as expected, the Alpine's actually pulling ahead a little bit, but Charles Leclerc will remain on the inside line, so this should be an easy pass for Charles. But no, Gasly's actually kept his nose in it, so he fought a bit harder than what Charles probably would have been guessing. So onto near the end of lap 3, we're going to do a bit of an order check here. So it's a Red Bull 1-2 from Perez and Verstappen to Carlos Sainz. He's rounding off the podium, so good race for Carlos. And the two Mercedes are Russell and Hamilton. Then the two McLarens of Norris and Piastri, so it's pretty even across the top. And then Charles Leclerc, Gasly, and then Ocon rounds out the points so far. Then it's Valtteri Bottas, the two Astons of Alonso, then Stroll. So they're both outside of the points, and I'm sure Alonso would love to get back into the points once this series. Then it's Nico Hulkenberg in P14. Then we find ourselves in P15. The two Alpha Tauris of De Vries and Tsunoda behind us, and then it's Albon, Magnussen, Sargent, Zhou. And then our teammate Awas is on the back of this train, so he's probably hoping to make a few desperate moves, as I did, to try and get himself further up this field. As we now go to lap 4, and there's a yellow flag in front of us. So maybe someone's had a bit of a spin in these tricky conditions, but it's actually Ocon. He's out of the race, so I would say that he's had some sort of mechanical failure there to be pulling off at that spot. That's a bit of a odd place to have a accident, as the virtual safety car is deployed. I don't think we're going to be able to make any strategy calls during this VSC. It is only lap 4, so it's a bit too early and a bit too wet to make a pit stop. So looking at a replay of Ocon, there's the telltale signs of the smoke coming out of the rear, so that's more of an engine failure, unfortunately, for the French driver. As we now look to Charles Leclerc, he's trying to make a big move here on Oscar Piastri, but I reckon it's going to be a pretty simple move into this stadium section. So Leclerc is on the charge here. But he's gone a bit wide, and it's going to allow Piastri. So I wonder if Piastri just had his nose still up the inside there. So now they're going to go side by side, and Piastri is going to swoop around the outside, which I'm sure is going to be annoying Charles Leclerc, knowing that he had to give up that position once again. But surely with the power of the slipstream, he should be able to get back by the McLaren, who I would say this early into the season probably isn't as quick as the Ferrari. Piastri is going very defensive going down this main straight, so this is going to give Leclerc that outside line going into the braking zone once again. So I wonder if this will just be a copycat move of what he did to Pierre Gasly. As you can see in the background there, Alonso's made a move on Valtteri Bottas, so now Alonso's back into the points, which he should be very pleased about. Now back to our POV. It's now lap 6. And we've got Nick De Vries tucked up closely behind us. So we're currently trying to close the gap to Nico Hulkenberg, but I think we're focusing too much on De Vries, as Mark has actually said that we've picked up a little bit of damage, so maybe hitting the curbs a bit too hard, but DRS is actually enabled, and we're being told to go for a 2-stop now, so we're going to go mediums and mediums. So it looks like it's too early to go onto the slick tyre, but as the race leader, Sergio Perez, comes in, he is going onto the slick tyre. So the AI is going onto the slick tyre, so it must be time to go onto the slicks as we very cautiously come into the pit lane. Don't want to be picking up any penalties here. So I don't really think it is time for the slick tyres. It just looks a bit too wet at the moment, but I'm going to trust the team to make the right call here, and it looks like the rest of the field is making a very similar decision as we get the optimal turn in. So hopefully this can be a nice quick stop. 2.5 seconds, that's a pretty good stop. So we didn't really make any inroads in on the pit lane, as we're still behind Hulkenberg and ahead of De Vries, so crucially didn't lose any positions, as I'm sure Iwasa is probably not going to be too happy, because he's probably would have been held up slightly from the loading of the pit crew after my pit stop. It's lap 8, and I reckon Aston Martin's made a mare here. They're pitting Alonso a bit too late, so Alonso's going to fall back outside of the points, and we're under attack from Nick De Vries, but I reckon we're going to be able to easily hold him off here. I reckon that straight's just not quite long enough for the AlphaTauri to get by us, but this straight should be well and truly long enough for Nick De Vries to get by us. The gap's closing down rapidly, and he's going to get by us very easily in the end, actually. So we're just going to sit tight behind him and try and see if we can't make anything work with going on to the next back straight, and use a bit of DRS to try and help us make that move back in. And one thing that has been very good with us is that through this really tight section of the circuit, we've been a lot faster than the AI. So if we wanted to try and make the DRS here, that middle sector is definitely where I'm going to be making up the time, as we're already gaining on De Vries, and now with the help of DRS, this should be a very easy move into the final hairpin as we pull to the left-hand side of the circuit, the dirty side of the circuit, but as the range just bend, it shouldn't be too bad, and there shouldn't be too much rubber build-up, so a pretty easy move in the end. And again, this straight shouldn't be too bad to defend from, as we did get a snap of oversteer. As we now do a quick another order check, it's Perez, but Verstappen and Sainz are actually battling really hard here, so this battle's definitely not done. I reckon we're going to see some more changes here on the podium as Sainz does get by Max Verstappen, and then it's the two Mercedes with Hamilton and Russell, and I'm sure they will be wanting to work together by giving each other DRS to try and move themselves closer to that top 3 battle. And then it's Norris, Gasly, Lance Stroll's doing very well to be inside the top 10, Leclerc, and then Piastri rounds out the top 10 as well. So Bottas is on the cusp here of getting some points for Alfa Romeo as well, and Alonso is probably spewing to be down in 12th. Nico Hulkenberg, and then ourselves in 14th, Nick De Vries in P15, as I just saw a glimpse of there was a bit of a battling up ahead, as I reckon it was Russell getting by Hamilton, and now Sainz and Verstappen are going at it as well. So De Vries is behind us, and then it's Magnussen, Zhou, Albon, and then our teammate Iwasa has actually moved up a couple of positions in the pit stop phase, so he finds himself P19, but ideally I would like him to be a little bit further up where we are. And then it's Sargent 20 and Yuki Tsunoda 21st, and then of course Ocon is our only DNF so far of this race with that engine failure very early on in the race, as Iwasa is actually now battling along with Albon. So it's good to see Iwasa's trying to make some inroads here on the field. So it's good to see that we're trying to make some improvements here by doing all those development upgrades, because the last few races he has been just kind of hanging around the back of the field by himself. But he's now actually in amongst it and battling, which is good to see, as we now just do the final check-up on Tsunoda, who's down in last position. Now, onto the back straight, we're going to be under attack again by De Vries, so this might just be our battle for the rest of the race, trying to defend our P14 position, but we do have to still make another pit stop, so hopefully we can make something work out of that, as De Vries just goes sailing by the outside of us. But we do have DRS going on to the next back straight, so hopefully we can make something work of this, as Verstappen is currently lining up to make a move on Carlos Sainz as we speak. So this should be a pretty easy pass for the Dutchman, and it is with the power of the DRS on the Red Bull. But Sainz is kind of making this a little bit hard. He kind of had his nose in there, so Verstappen had to take a bit of a wide line. It's the two Mercedes now battle it out, and as you can see, they have closed in that gap quite a bit, so they must have been working together with the DRS, as there are 3 DRS points around this track, so it's not that hard to quickly swap positions around and just give each other a tow. So the Mercedes definitely working together as that gap continues to come down, as Sainz and Verstappen continue to battle it out. So I reckon this could be very quickly a 4-car battle for second position, as now Russell goes along the inside of Hamilton. So this is what I'm talking about, although they're not really doing each other favours here if they're going to be going side by side through the stadium section. So this could be really holding them up, but they'll have a really good run through this really tight section going onto the final back straight, and I reckon Verstappen and Sainz must have tried to go side by side through there, but because that gap has come down by nearly an entire second. So now all 4 of these cars within DRS of each other, so Verstappen's going to have a hard time to defend from all 4 of these guys. So I reckon we're going to have quite the battle on our hands going into the second half of this race. But the battling's not done yet, because now Sainz is in front, so that means now Verstappen's going to have the DRS on him. So it's time to see how good that DRS is on the Red Bull, to see if this small DRS straight is beneficial enough for the Dutchman to get by, but it's not quite big enough as we now head back to our POV. So we're still trying to battle with Nick De Vries here, so we're going to get the DRS, but he looks like he's a bit too far ahead, so we might have to play it smart here, make him go defensive, try and make him mess up his line. We get the better exit, and then we benefit off that small DRS straight, and that's exactly what we do. He has to take a much tighter line, we take the wide line, so we're able to get the better run. But we did get a little bit of a tail wag going onto the straight, so our straight line speed has been compromised, and De Vries actually squeezed us all the way onto the dirty stuff. So I reckon we might be a bit slow going through here, as our tyres have to clean up a little bit as we're getting back onto the throttle. And we get a big tank slapper going, and we're in the wall. We're out. That's it. That's the end of our race. So we weren't going to be getting points anyway, but to throw it in the wall and cost the team this much money is big implications for our championship hopes. Not that we're going for the World Drivers' Championship, but we just want to try and get as many points as we can in this season to try and benefit the team. So now looking at a replay of what's happened, this is on board Nick De Vries, so he's defended us and we've gone all the way to the inside, so our tyres are going to be quite dirty here. As we did get just a big tank slap, and it just threw us very hard into the wall. So now looking at another angle of it here, it doesn't look too bad from here, just a bit of good battling, and then this angle will show that, oh, that was such a big impact into the wall. So we're very lucky that it's done pretty minimal damage in comparison.
Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
So in the end, definitely not the race that we were after. I mean, we didn't have the pace to start with, so I reckon points were a bit too far off for us this time. So the fact that we DNF just adds a bit of salt into the wound. So it's pretty interesting here to see that Max Verstappen actually did end up getting the win, considering that Sergio Perez had quite the gap to him. So maybe a bit of a strategy call here to favour Max Verstappen in his championship charge, as Max was leading the championship going into this race. But Carlos Sainz, in the end, a stellar drive to maintain his P3. Now, looking at the results of the race, as you can see, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz was our post. The two Mercedes ended up finishing 4th and 5th, with Lando Norris making it a Brit in the 4, 5, 6 positions. Charles Leclerc ended up P7, so his charge didn't end up going very far. Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso did finishing in the points, so Alonso should be pretty happy with that. And then Stroll made it a double points finish for the Aston Martin squad. So now looking a bit further into the race scorings, there is Oscar Piastri down P11, so he was just on the cusp of getting some more points this season. Valtteri Bottas P12, not too bad in the Alfa Romeo. Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen 13th, 14th, so Haas did not score any points at all this race, which is pretty unfortunate considering I reckon they probably were too far off getting some points. Zhou in 15th, Albon in 16th, not too bad, but I'm sure he would have been hoping for a bit more points considering the amount of main straights around this circuit. De Vries 17th, Tsunoda 18th. Our teammate did finishing 19th, Sargent 20th, and then myself and Ocon both ended up DNFing. And now looking at the driver standings, Max Verstappen has slightly extended his lead over Sergio Perez, but still only 10 points, so really it's anyone's championship with Charles Leclerc. He's fallen a little bit further back with that only a P7 finish. So his championship is starting to slip away a little bit. Remember, it's only 16 races this season. It's not a full season, so every point really does matter. Red Bull are extending their lead in the constructors, so it looks like they might be running away with this one. But the midfield battle is spicy. Between Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo, there's not very many points in it at all. Only 27 points, in fact. And Brabham find ourselves in P8. Now, post-race back at the HQ, we've got to do some upgrades here to try and boost ourselves. So for the activities, we're going to go for a race simulation activity. We're going to boost Iwasa as well by giving him a performance review. We're going to do some sponsor advertisings to try and get a bit more cash in, and we're also going to do a durability team building to try and help their morale. And for the aerodynamics, we're also going to do a quality control upgrade to try and help reduce the risk of us failing more, because I reckon the aero is really where we're struggling. I think the car's just going to be too much drag, as we're currently fast forwarding our calendar and trying to boost our development points and R&D points, because I reckon we might be able to snag a couple more upgrades. As you can see, a few upgrades have been completed, as we do a chassis upgrade, which is the cable assembly, and in the powertrain department we're going to upgrade the ECU as well, so hopefully these can help out in the next round when we find ourselves back in Italy, and we're going to be doing a race around Imola, so a very iconic circuit. In previous games I've been pretty good around here, so I'm hoping for a decent result. I don't think points will be on the table. I don't think this track's going to suit the Brabham too well, but anything is possible. I wasn't expecting points in Azerbaijan, but we got the points, so if something crazy happens, we're going to try and take full advantage of it and try and maximize every opportunity we get this season, as I just don't think we're going to have the time to upgrade our car enough to be consistently in the points. So anyways, I hope you did enjoy this video. It's a bit of a shorter one as we did not complete the entire race, but be sure to check out the next video when it comes out, and we'll be racing at Imola. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.